Now, hello, welcome everyone. This is Adebusola, and it's been a while. I received several messages in my inbox requesting for detailed explanation, like an introduction on what Ireland self-sponsorship is about with regards to the nursing recruitment, and some even requested for mentoring option in relation to this as well. That is the purpose of this tutorial, just a way to answer so many questions with a goal, with one shot. Basically, that is it. So I want to explain understanding self-sponsorship for Ireland, especially for a lot of people that have decision letters, and basically that's what this is about. It's for decision letter holders only, people that have decision letters from the NMBI, and some don't have job offers yet, and they are just worried that they don't want to sit down just or keep applying for jobs over and over. They just want to see options and alternatives, alternative pathways that they could also take as well. And that's one of the bases for this tutorial. So I'm going to be explaining what self-sponsorship is about. Briefly, the topics I covered in this include qualified outside Ireland. That's just an overview of what the process is about, and then the registration process itself. I'll briefly talk about the atypical working scheme and our CSI FNM aptitude test. So basically what I'm saying is you would have to pay attention, listen attentively, and watch to the end of the video. And I'll talk about the visa options as well if you are taking the self-sponsorship pathway without employment, and accommodation options that you could use that could be helpful for you. And if you're traveling to Ireland, what the cost implication could be, that's by yourself without sponsorship, getting around Ireland and the cost of living, and then your chances of securing a job afterwards, and then the mentoring option that goes with this, that if you think you might need additional help after my explanatory tutorial today. So those are the topics that I covered in this tutorial. Hopefully they will be of great help. So I would want you to sit down, relax, and let's do this together, and hopefully it can answer some of your questions if not all of the questions. Firstly, I'm just going to talk about what the overseas pathway is about, especially for nurses and midwives that want to work and practice in Ireland. Generally, self-sponsoring processes is a very, very complex one. It could really be time consuming. It can be rewarding as well. It's very, very important that you do your research and ensure that you meet all the requirements before you begin that process. You have to make sure you meet all the requirements, you meet the eligibility criteria, and you understand what the qualification outside Ireland could be about. And generally, if you are a nurse or a midwife or whatever your qualification is with regards to nursing and midwifery as background, then you would need to first be registered with the Nursing and Midwifery Board of Ireland. You have to apply to them for your overseas recognition. And basically, to practice nursing or midwifery in Ireland, you need to complete two processes. As one is recognition of your qualifications from your home country, and this involves the fact that they are going to compare your qualifications with the Irish education standards and requirements. And then basically, before you commence that application process, you need to understand what NMBI is about. You need to visit their website and know more about them, and especially go through the overseas applicants guide. That might be of great help to you. And then as part of the overseas qualification process, you have to know that you shouldn't discontinue from where you are working currently if you haven't gotten a decision letter or you haven't applied you haven't gotten indications like green lights that you're really going to travel. So don't resign yet. Don't move to Ireland. You have to apply and make sure that you have a decision letter at least before making any travel or employment plans. And always NMBI, always the Nursing and Midwifery Board of Ireland, they always say they don't fast track any applications. Your application has to be in queue and is attended to in order of receipt. It's attended to in order of receipt. So you have to be mindful of that as well. Then the registration process itself, what is that about for people joining me for the first time? And this is just a summary note. I'm going to self-sponsorship. I just want to create a brief background of what you might need to know. Definitely, if you want to register as a nurse in Ireland or as a midwife, you first need to meet the eligibility criteria to work as a nurse in Ireland. You have to have all the necessary qualifications and your registration evaluated by the Nursing and Midwifery Board of Ireland. You have to apply to them, and then afterwards, until at least you get your decision letter, NMBI decision letter. And that decision letter, depending on the division you have applied for with the Nursing and Midwifery Board of Ireland, is either going to say, oh, you can only do adaptation in Ireland, adaptation placement and assessment, or you can also do aptitude test as another option. Some say adaptation only, some decision letters say adaptation only, some say either of the two. And at this stage, the employer decides if they are going to choose aptitude test for you or if they are going to choose the adaptation pathway for you. Whatever is available to them at the time of booking, and any option that they think might be faster for them depending on the job specifications that you have applied for. And at that stage, I have a separate introductory video on what adaptation is about. You might find that on this channel, and I would like you to also subscribe to the channel and turn on your notification bell so you don't miss any updates. So I have a very brief introductory video on adaptation, what that is about, adaptation and assessment, what that is about. And I have another brief one on the RCSI aptitude test on what that is about. And aside that, there's a separate mentoring for RCSI aptitude test prep. That's those who have been booked for the exam and they want to prepare and pass at the first attempt. That is that about that. So generally, you should have your decision letter from the NMBI stating you can either do this or that, adaptation or RCSI aptitude test, whatever it is. And after that stage, you get an employment. Your employer can request for additional or supporting documentations to support your application. You could proceed to apply for your work permit, which enables you to come to Ireland for a few weeks or first few months, so that you could get your registration sorted before you resume as a professional. And afterwards, then you can your employer can apply for critical skills permit for you. That is only applied in Ireland, just so that you could get your family in as well. Then aside that, just to let you know, the AWS permit and the critical skills permit are different, and I'm going to explain that in the next slide. They are both different. So generally, if you are booked for adaptation program or you are booked for RCSI aptitude test, either by employer sponsorship or by self-sponsorship. Employer sponsorship simply means that most of that stage is going to be covered by your employer. If you have a deal and then when you get a job, employer can tell you, oh, it could be part of their contract that maybe they are going to sponsor your visa flight, or maybe they are going to sponsor your adaptation program, or they are going to sponsor your RCSI aptitude test. So in some contract, it says it's going to be reimbursed. That means you get to pay yourself and they pay back later in Ireland, after you have successfully passed that exam or pass that adaptation period. um, it depends, but during that period, because you are not yet a full professional until you complete your NMBI registration in Ireland, then as at that stage you need a work permit, a temporary work permit that can enable you to come to Ireland to complete that phase, that stage, that can, before you get your critical skills permit. The critical skills permit is based on your employment only, and it's only applied for roles, for positions that offer up to at least 60,000 per year, or at least 30,000 per year, or up onto 60,000 per year, and it's for highly skilled occupations like medical professionals, pharmacists, nurses, and many more. That would be on the Critical Skills website if you want to know more about that. And I think I have an intro video on that as well. But that is only gotten in Ireland. And before you go and complete a period of adaptation or period of aptitude test with your job offer, you need to apply for the atypical working scheme. Atypical working scheme, and that is only for category long stay visa, and that's only applied for in your home country. No one can apply for that in Ireland for you on your behalf. No one can access your details. It has to be you making the application and making the payment in your own name. And to be eligible for the AWS working scheme, you must be a non-European national, and you must be eligible for the work permit under the scheme, and your job offer in Ireland must be for a specific period of time. The job must be outside the scope of the standard work permit system, that is the general employment permit system, and at the same time there is a fee attached to that, which is non-refundable fee. That is about 250 euros at the moment. So like if you apply for your atypical working scheme yourself, or someone applies for you, or your employer, for example, with permission from you and approval from the AWS office, and there is a mistake in the application and it's denied for whatever reason, it's non-refundable. You would have to make another one from scratch. And the AWS is a temporary work scheme. It doesn't provide a pathway to permanent residence in Ireland. That is, if you are coming to Ireland with AWS working scheme permit, that does not authorize you to bring your family into the country. It does not authorize you to stay in the country longer than the term, because they're going to give you an expiration date, and that is it basically. And then you have to understand that when you coming into the country later, either by employer sponsorship or by self-sponsorship, you would have to book an appointment with the Irish Immigration Service. When you book an appointment, they have to register you and give you an Irish residency permit card, which is IRP card. The expiration date of your residency permit card is going to be the expiration date of your atypical working scheme. So later, if anything changes, you pass your registration stage successfully, and your employer applies for critical skills work permit for you. When you get that, you can reapply to the immigration service and extend your stay. Basically, that is what that is about. Now I'm going to go to another thing and talk about the RCSI aptitude test. Now the RCSI aptitude test generally costs 2,800 euros, and mostly it is sponsored by an employer. That is, an employer pays for you, or they could ask you to create your account and they make the payment on your behalf, or send you the proof of payment. That is the normal standard. But if you don't have an employment yet, and then you want to make the payment yourself, it's going to cost you 2,000 euro, 800 euros, 2,800. That's so much money which you would have to raise. And if you're in a country like Nigeria, you could pay that with via bank transfer from your bank, because when you start the application, you're going to see the details of payment and the accounts to pay into, and they give you that, or via domiciliary card. That could help you as well. And then that means you are going to be paying yourself. If you are going via self sponsorship, you are going to be making the payment yourself. So without a job offer, you can't apply for AWS working scheme permit, which allows you even to work temporarily in Ireland during that period that you are covering, that you are going to be doing adaptation or RCSI aptitude test. If you have a job offer, you can, with your RCSI, you can also apply for your AW, because it's one of the visa requirements. With a job offer and employer sponsorship, you are going to be applying for category D, which is long stay visa. Category D, long stay visa. But definitely, with self sponsorship, you can only apply for short stay visa. I'll explain more what I mean by that later on. About the RCSI FNM aptitude test. So that test basically is run by the RCSI, Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland, and in collaboration with the Nursing and Midwifery Board of Ireland. You would need to complete the application form and submit all your requirements, required documentations, and pay the fees and get all your confirmation for that. It's part of the requirements for RCSI aptitude test application that you have your NMBI decision letter. So you need that to make your application. If you already have that but you don't have a job offer yet, that is okay. You can always apply for your test yourself, but definitely that test date you are choosing needs to be at least 12 weeks away from your application date. At least 12 weeks away from your application date. That's to give room for visa applications and other logistics that you might have to put in place even before your exam date. Now, I'll talk more about the visa options. I'm just trying to scroll my screen. Yeah, so depending on your nationality, you are going to apply. You may need to apply for visa. If you are planning to stay longer than 90 days, you have to register with the immigration in Ireland, and a visa allows you to travel to Ireland only. Just to let everyone know, it doesn't give you the permission to enter the country or to stay in that country. I mean, it doesn't authorize you to permanently stay. Like if your permission expires and you decide to continue staying in the country, no, you are not. It's illegal to do that. You are not permitted to do that. And if you don't have an employer offer yet, and you're just worried about a lot of things, you want to take the self-sponsorship pathway, and you are going to be booking for your exam, the visa option, as opposed to applying for employment visa, you can't apply for employment visa, long stay employment visa. You can't apply for that, but you can apply for short stay category C exam visa. Short stay allows you to stay in the country for a period of 90 days. Hopefully within that period you would have sorted out a lot of things, and it might be too short anyway, but hopefully you might have covered your registration. I will personally recommend that if you're applying for AWS, make sure not AWS now, short stay category C visa, and you get the visa always states that, oh, you are permitted to enter the country with between now and so date. They could give you up to 1 month period that you have to enter the country. It's always good to come into Ireland. That's like around a week or within the week of your exam, of your RCSI, so that you don't incur unnecessary costs upon yourself, and so that you don't waste time you don't waste the remaining time left on your exam visa, because you can't actually take up any job, either it's paid or unpaid. You can't work as HCA with exam visa. You are not permitted to work. You are not, if you are applying for any job whatsoever, they are going to look at your visa and your stamp on your passport. So with category C, short stay visa, exam visa, because it will be one of the requirements that you get all your details for your exam, the payment, confirmation of the RCSI test you are taking or adaptation that you are doing. That's if you are going through self-sponsorship pathway, and then you can't take up any job because of that, because it's short stay, you are not permitted to work. And that is it basically. And that's for category C. But for exam, you don't need a typical working scheme approval letter. You don't need that. If you are only applying for exam visa, you don't need a typical working scheme approval letter. So that's one way to avoid the AWS and all the issues that that are surrounded with it. And another thing is, for short stay category C visa, it would be necessary to provide strong evidence of obligations to return to your country after your stay is expired. You might need to provide evidence that you have strong family ties, strong social ties, you have properties in your home country that you would return to. You still have family members back home, you have parents, because the exam visa is meant to be a short stay visa, and they wouldn't want anything that would let you stay in the country beyond the time you have provided. And hopefully you'll be able to finish your nursing registration and even get a job with that period. And when you're applying for short stay visa, your reason is going to be exam. You name the exam, your journey type, either is single or multiple. And note that still, that visa doesn't allow you to take up any job. Either it's paid, either it's unpaid, either it's acting as an observer, either it's acting as a volunteer. It's not allowed. Because if you are caught, you could get a 5 years ban into any country in Europe, including Ireland as well. And the time period you are permitted to stay in the country is going to show on your stamp. And make sure you leave before the permission expires. If you get a job offer, and if you, even your employer might have to look at your stamp and everything, but at the same time, they could, you yourself, or if you're in Ireland, you could apply for your critical skills if you have a confirmation of employment. And when you get that critical skills, you can always make an appointment with immigration to extend your stay. You can always make an appointment with the immigration to extend your stay. Make sure you have that at the back of your mind. And then I'm going to talk about the accommodation options. I'm just trying to scroll my screen. So basically, accommodation in Ireland is a very, very sensitive issue, and it's very competitive at the moment. But if you are coming to Ireland on a short stay, there might be options, a variety of options for you. Some people are buoyant enough; they could try to get hotels and lodge and just book online or through a travel agent during that period, maybe at least for 3 months or something. Again, that is an expensive option, but there are also beds and breakfast. That is, they call them B&Bs. They are like small family-run accommodations. They provide typically breakfast to guests, and they can also provide more local experiences, like compared to hotels anyway. is for short stay, like you are coming into the country, you've booked your exam, you're landing this week, you don't have anyone, because it's very difficult sharing houses in Ireland, because some houses, majority of the houses, you would have signed on the contract that you are not permitted to accommodate anyone, to keep anyone else under your roof. They already have pictures or details of every member of the residing in that house. Sometimes they have cameras, sometimes some landlords do a lot of checks and occasional inspections and stuff like that. So unless people are really homeowners and they are sharing houses, or they have the permission to share from their landlords, or could be landlords that they just want people living under their roofs as well, that's when sharing options are very, very common. So the B&Bs, their short stay accommodations, at least could help. It's available online, could help you during that period. Or there are also guest houses that you could look up online. There is Airbnb as well. It's a popular online platform that connects people traveling. For example, if I'm in this county, I want to go to another county, maybe just for 2 days or sightseeing, I don't know where to stay, I can look up online who Airbnb and B&B, and connect and enter my details, the duration of the stay, where I want to stay, and it will bring me a couple of options, because some people actually do that as a way to save. They open up their homes for visiting for people that need short duration of accommodation. And it's important that you also know short stay visa allows you to stay in the country for up to 90 days. For up to 90 days. If you have a plan to be staying longer than that, then you might really go for rented apartments or houses, or make sure you do your research properly and make sure that you choose the accommodation that meets your criteria, at the moment. Then at the same time, I'm going to talk about the cost implications if you are traveling to Ireland, especially via self-sponsorship. Yeah. So especially via self-sponsorship, if you want to travel to Ireland on a short stay visa, it can involve a lot of costs. You need to consider that you need to have your cost for application of visa for that country. Application of visa, I've explained having the cost of application for your test. If you are doing RCSI aptitude test, for example, the test you need, that's 2,800 euros by itself. If you are doing adaptation, that is 1,000 euros. 1,000 euros. Again, another thing with adaptation, before I forget this, is you can't just apply to a hospital that you want to do it's employment process. It's the same employment process. You need to get an employer that can allow you to do that, because adaptation program is like applying for a job. And most adaptation programs are for midwives category, a few for nurses, and only dedicated centers do that. Generally, centers that do adaptation in Ireland are not so many. They only have a few hospitals approved by the NMPI, and it could be competitive because they have a specific number of candidates that they have to take into the program, just be mindful of that as well. So during the adaptation, the employer is going to be paying you like a student nurse, or like a student midwife, because you don't have full registration yet. It could take up to 6 weeks or 8 weeks, generally 8 to 12 weeks. It could take up to that to complete an adaptation process. But for exam purposes, you're not going to be paid, definitely, because you don't have a job offer yet, and you're just coming to do the exam. So make sure, aside that the fees for either adaptation or RCSI have to test, make sure you have the cost of your visa. A single entry visa, I think it's still 60 euros as at the time of making this video. It's still 60 euros. Multiple entries, 100 euros. But definitely Local embassies, when you apply for visa in your home country, they still have administrative charges. They have other things that they deduct, and most of them, they take payments in local currency, so they can actually attach their own fees, whatever it is, as at the time of the application. And the visa fees depend on your cost of the stay, or of the length of the stay of your visa. It depends on how many entries you're going to be taking, and it depends on your nationality as well. It could be up to 80 euros in some countries. Just be mindful of that. So aside the fact that you have your test ready, fees ready, or adaptation ready, you have your visa ready, you also need to put into consideration that the flight ticket, you need to put that in. If your visa is approved, what about your flight? You need to put that into consideration as well. One way ticket. It depends on your country. If you are in a place like Nigeria, you might need there might be stopovers, so you would need to check the details of the flight if there is going to be a stopover in between. Stopover means that the plane is not coming to Ireland straight, it's going to stop in this country, and people might be waiting for so and so hours or so and so minutes, and then they go into transfer into another plane that is coming to Ireland direct. Sometimes you are lucky, you get direct flights. Sometimes it could be 2 stopovers, with you landing in different countries, or even sleeping over in a hotel booked by the airlines. So just be mindful of that sometimes it is not always direct flights. You might need to put that into consideration. You might be stopping over in another country for the night, or to continue your journey the next day via another plane entirely. It could be direct flight. Flight tickets could be very, very expensive. Depending on which flight you are taking. It could be, if you are in a country like Nigeria, it could be anything from 400k to 700k. Just be mindful, it could be more, it could be less, but depending, just have that at the back of your mind as well. And another thing about the traveling, the cost implication, accommodation. I mentioned accommodation in Ireland could be very expensive. If you are doing RCSI aptitude test, that center is in Dublin. That means the accommodation you are going to be looking for might be close to your test center. Definitely, it needs to be in Dublin. So that even if it's not very close to your test center, and you want to get yourself to the center on the exam day by another means of transportation, but have it at the back of your mind. Dublin is a very expensive area. Accommodation, if you are getting a house, if you are getting rented apartments, it could cost anything from 1,000 euros and above. It could cost 1,500 for houses. Sharing options might be cheaper, maybe 500, maybe 400 monthly. If you have like the accommodation I mentioned earlier on, guest houses, hostels, B&Bs, Airbnb, those ones have cheaper options depending on the duration of your stay. They have more affordable options that you can choose from. Depends on the location as well. It depends on the time of the year. Is it summer, is it winter, and things like that. Then at the same time, be mindful, you need to have transportation costs ready, because you don't have an employer yet, and your short stay visa is not permitting you to work, because your visa is only for exam purpose. You need to bear all other costs yourself. So you really need to be prepared for this. Transportation in Ireland could include the public transport, rental cars, tours, and other things like that. Some people might decide they want to go sightseeing, they want to go to do entertainment, they want to go shopping, they want to do things, a lot of things. What you spend personally on transportation depends on your personal preference. You could be someone that loves going on taxis, and taxis could be expensive, very, very expensive. You could be someone that loves going on public buses, which are way affordable than taxis. If a taxi covers from here to that end, maybe what will I use to describe that now? Maybe a 15 minutes drive in a car could cost you up to 25-30 euros. Meanwhile, a 15 minutes ride on a bus, on a public bus, could only cost you maybe 2 euros 25 or max 3 euros or thereabouts. So you have to consider what you can afford. You have to consider, and if your house is not too far away and living close to a place where you can get things at affordable prices, you could buy a bicycle, you could use an electric scooter to move from one place to the other. Taxis are very, very available. You can call it, you can download the taxi application on your phone. The fees for taxis depends on your distance traveled, and it depends on the time of the day as well. You have to be mindful of that. And buses are way cheaper. They are cheaper. They are wide available in cities, in towns, everywhere. You see buses up and down. Some people rent cars. Like they decide you could even rent bicycle, you could rent bikes. There are centers in Ireland that you could do that, and they get all your details, they give you all their terms and conditions, and you bring it back when the rentage period is over. You could decide to walk. Walking actually is very good. You could decide to take a walk, especially if you are walking less than half an hour distance, less than 20 minutes distance. That could be helpful for you. Just be mindful, it depends on the time of arrival in the country. It could be entering freezing temperatures, and you might really need winter coats, winter boots. You might need hand gloves and scarves and things to really protect yourself from the cold. You might need that as well. And another thing is, just be mindful. I'll talk about the cost of living as well. The cost of living in Ireland. Let me see. Yeah, I think I put it twice. Okay, so I've talked about transportation, getting around Ireland, and the cost and the traveling costs together. And then I'm going to talk briefly about the cost of living in Ireland, especially if you don't have an employer, if you are not working, and your visa allows you to stay for only 3 months. Be mindful, Ireland is an expensive place. The cost of living for short stay visas can vary depending on factors such as the location of the place you are staying, accommodation, especially if you don't have family or friend, food, entertainment. Even if you have family or friend, you will still have to be responsible for what you eat and where you stay. You might be sharing bills for houses, which is common here. You are going to be sharing bills. If the house is using electricity, gas, definitely you would have to cook yourself, and you might be sharing things like that. If you are staying in hostels, if you are staying in B&Bs that I explained earlier on, or B&Bs, the beds and breakfast accommodation, that could cost around 25 euros to 80 euros per night, depending on where you are staying. Hotels can actually cost anything between 80 and 150 per night. If you want the exotic locations, that could cost you 150 euros or more per night. And definitely you have to eat something. So food and drink in Ireland ranges, like basic meals, ranges between 10 euro to 20 euros. Like that, between 10 euro per meal. So if you want to be eating 2 times in a day or 3 times in a day, evaluate that and know what your expense might be. If you cook, it's cheaper to actually cook your own food. There are Afro-Asian shops, there are African shops and you can always get local food at your own expense. And in various locations, especially in Dublin, there are lots of them. African dishes, intercontinental dishes, either it's cooked or not cooked or raw. You can always get everything you want. Be mindful of that as well. And another thing is on transportation cost. Like I mentioned previously, getting around Ireland a single bus or train journey could cost you maybe €2.50 to €3. And if you're using the leap card, I actually made a video on moving around Ireland, and I explained the different types of buses, implications, and I talked about the leap card. So it's on YouTube if you want to find that as well and see. If you're using the leap card, it's for buses, for public transport, and certain transports in Ireland. It's discounted. So entering the bus, paying with your leap card, because you always recharge the leap card and make payments, and you make sure you always have credit left in it. There are children leap cards for children. There are adult leap cards for adults. That is always discounted, and it would help you to save greatly. If you decide, oh, you want to watch concerts, you want to watch movies, shows, that could cost you anything from €20 to €100. It depends on your preference anyway. It depends on your preference. And taxes, most taxes, if you are taking taxes in Ireland from place to maybe on your exam date, you don't want to be late, it's nighttime, the exam says you have to be at the door by 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and you want to leave your house. If you are far away on time, you want to save yourself from the stress of getting from over a bus to bus, and you just want to get to your exam center on time. You might need to take a taxi on your exam date. And most times when the taxi gets to you, they have the starting fare of €4.50. It could even be more depending on if you booked a taxi that is 5 seaters, or a taxi that is 8 seaters or more, or it depends on how it's. So starting means you haven't used it at all. The charge is going to start on the counter from €4.50. So you're not going to, no taxi would ever come to you starting from zero. The charge is already fixed, and that is what the reading is going to start from. Either you use it or not, you only have to pray that you don't get stuck in traffic, because it's going to continue reading and more like that. Just be mindful. Definitely buses are way cheaper than hopping on taxis could ever be, and especially if you are in a popular tourist area like Dublin, you need to plan ahead, you need to set a budget, you need to check for affordable options that can help you make most of your trip, especially for self-sponsorship. That means if you are staying in Ireland for about 3 months without a job, you know the implications of that. And you would really need to prove, because even if you are applying for exam visa, definitely it's mandatory that you show proof of sufficient payment in your account, so sufficient fees in your account that will sustain you during your period of stay. There's no specific value for that now. It could be let's say have at least 4M to 5M in Naira in that account, because you don't have an employer yet, and you want to sustain yourself, because your visa is not going to allow you to take to do anything with public funds. To access, you can access hospital, but at your own expense. You need your private insurance. So I would averagely say have about 4M to 5M in your account before making that application for visa, because they are going to look at that as well. Then I've spoken about the cost of living. I hope I've answered some people's questions. And then at the same time, what are your chances of getting a job offer afterwards? What are your chances of getting a job offer afterwards? A lot of people ask me this question. I would say you already know by now that nursing in Ireland is a regulated profession, which means that you have to be registered with the Nursing and Midwifery Board of Ireland, NMBI, before you can work as a nurse. You have to be registered. And if you are doing RCSI aptitude test, your priority is to make sure, if you want to get everything done within that 3 months and increase your chances of getting a job, your priority is to make sure that you pass your exam in one attempt, first attempt only. You pass your exam in first attempt. If you need mentoring with the exam preparation, It's on my mentoring link. The website is showing on your screen. That's www.adebusolaowokole.com. You can select the mentoring menu option and see all the options you need to pass. Like I said, it's advisable you get into the country like during the week of your exam, so that you still have some stay left at least, and you're not just wasting your time. You don't want to come in way before the exam, longer than necessary, that you waste all the time and eventually your stay elapses without you getting a chance to even get a job or to even get the critical skills that could increase your chances of your stay being extended. So you want to aim at passing that exam at all cost. You don't want to waste it, because if you fail and then you have another chance, it's only 2 attempts. At the second attempt, because it's going to be like maybe 1 or 2 weeks away from each other, the second attempt, that further increases the time that you get your registration, because if you don't pass the exam or it keeps being delayed, you can't, NMBI can't send you a message to proceed with your registration, so you have to be mindful of that. Even with the registration, at either you have passed your adaptation, or passed the RCSI aptitude test, and you get to the registration phase in Ireland, sometimes at that phase you are providing additional documents, and then you are making the application, you are paying the €145 to get the register, the pin. Some people still get queries, so it doesn't mean in Ireland they can no longer send you queries. No, some people still get queries. Some people still get queries on verification of license from their home countries. They might even request for a new verification at that point in time. A lot of things. Some still get queries on documentation that were omitted at recognition phase. Sometimes they might say some documents, the signature and the date on them has expired, and a lot of issues. That is why you need to aim at no queries, or getting all your queries sorted. Some people, they try and answer their queries in a way they can, and they pass that stage, they get the job decision letter, and they think it's all going to be over and everything they skipped is forgotten. No, they might bring you back before the pin is issued and issue another query. If any query is issued at that stage, that would extend your stay in Ireland and shorten the time you have left on your short stay visa, and further delay your registration, and you wouldn't want that to happen. So your aim is to meet up with all the deadlines, because even if you meet up with that, applying for the job won't be automatic. When a job application is open and you want to apply for the job in Ireland, the job always have these deadlines. You might see a job offer thrown open today on a website, and they said the deadline for applications is in another 3 or 4 weeks before they start the shortlisting process of the interview. After the interview, before they verify all other things, do the gather vetting, that's the police vetting, it might take another 1 to 2 months. So really, you want to make sure you meet up with the deadlines and get placed on the register as fast as possible, so that you can use that pin, apply for jobs, and make sure you get your critical skills that can extend your stay before you get back for immigration. Because with an exam visa, you can bring your family into Ireland, definitely. Like I said, it's a short stay category C visa only. It's a short stay category C visa only. Just be mindful of that. Be persistent as much as possible. Be flexible as well. And keep in mind that it may actually take some time to secure a job offer and complete the necessary paperwork for the critical skills. Just be mindful of that as well. And the nursing job markets, midwifery markets, is very competitive. There are many qualified nurses vying for a limited number of positions, and you want to make sure that you get things right. And that is one of the purpose of mentoring. Like I mentioned, the self-sponsorship is for DL holders only. Especially DL holders without a job offer. Who think they want to take this pathway Sorry, I think my screen has just frozen. I'm trying to. So let me see. Not sure why my screen is frozen, but hopefully it's going to unfreeze. So that's the mentoring option for Highland overseas nurses. If you go on my mentoring link, which I'm showing on the screen, that's www.adebusola.owokole.com/mentoring, and you will see the very first option that is going to pop out on your screen is going to be Ireland overseas nurses and midwife mentoring option. If you think you need support with this, you have your DL, you've passed the job search stage and you've made up your mind that, oh, you want to go for self-sponsorship and you think you might need help or support or step-by-step guide with that, this is the purpose of this. This is the purpose of this, and that is exactly what you need. Sorry, I'm just trying to see if I can unfreeze my screen. Okay, I'll just leave it as it is for now. So basically, that is what it's about. And if you need mentoring with the RCSI Aptitude Test Prep, it's also on the link as well. This is not mandatory for everyone. For midwives especially, like I mentioned briefly, the adaptation phase, the adaptation itself is like applying for a job. It's like applying for a job. There would be no need. You can apply for adaptation, but it's very competitive. It wouldn't be automatic. There might be some delays. There might be some delays in actually securing a slot because the slots are very limited, and you will need to keep trying. You will need to keep trying so that you get that right at all cost. So that you get that right at all cost. And that is it basically for this tutorial. I hope I've been able to answer everyone's questions, the few questions I received anyway. Let me see if my screen is back. No, it's not back. That is okay. That's the end of this. That is the end of this tutorial basically. Like I mentioned just briefly, be mindful that it might actually take some time to get a job offer in Ireland, and when you come into the country with the short stay category C visa, short stay category C, it doesn't allow you to take up any job, it doesn't allow you to do anything. You're only coming into the country to prepare for your exam and focus, and you are permitted to remain in the country until the duration of that visa is expired. When you're in Ireland later on, you can't apply for AWS permit in Ireland because it will no longer be relevant unless you go back home after your stay to apply for the AWS permit and start your job search from your home country. If not, you would have to make sure that you get the job offer from here and apply for your critical skills. At that stage, while you are in Ireland, it might not be employer sponsorship anymore. You might be making payment for your critical skills yourself with all the details of your employer. And after that, you have all that sorted, then you would be able to make another application for appointment. You book an appointment with the immigration service to get another Irish residency permit card, because when you want to apply for a job, is one of the requirements. If you are from overseas, most employers would ask for your Irish residency permit. So immediately you coming into the country, make sure you can even book the appointment from your own country. Make sure that you register with immigration. The stamp on that, they're going to give you, they're going to stamp your passport and put the date that you are allowed to stay in the country too. Make sure you have that at the back of your mind. Make sure you have that at the back of your mind as well. So employer sponsorship mostly covers, sometimes it could cover flights, it could cover accommodation temporarily, like 50% of employers, it could cover a lot of things. But if you are sponsoring yourself, there is a lot of cost implication, especially for an expensive country like Ireland. Be mindful that you have to put all those into consideration. Have sufficient funds in your account before you apply for your visa. And thank you so much, everyone. Make sure that you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on your bell so that you don't miss an upcoming video. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you, and bye bye.